What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the first Victory Monday show of the young season. Welcome back to the Phaithful Phantatics show. As always, we are streaming to you guys live on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channel. The Eagles win a fun one on Friday night in Brazil, taking down the Packers 34-29. We're going to give you guys our reactions, our takeaways, both positive and negative. But at the end of the day, it feels good to have the one in the win column to kick off the 2024 season. Scotty, I'm one half of your host, guys. Dylan Davis, to my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. And if you guys do want to be interactive, if you do want to give your thoughts on Friday night's victory, which for some reason feels like a lifetime ago, we've been dying to get on here and share our thoughts and talk this one out with you guys. But if you do want to be interactive, do yourself a favor. Do us a favor. Make sure to check out the YouTube channel specifically. It is the best and only spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here with us. So make sure to smash that subscribe button. My man, happy Monday. Let's hope we have plenty more of these throughout the regular season and deep into January. But we're off to a good start nonetheless. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. Obviously, we're coming off a great Sunday, the first NFL Sunday of the new season, which obviously thoroughly enjoyed from a betting perspective, from an entertainment perspective, all around. Honestly, it was a great display this weekend for the NFL. A lot of close games outside of the Giants. The Giants are just fucking horrible. But everything else was great, man. Not that I laid any money on the Giants. I don't want that to be misconstrued. It's not like that. They're just a funny ass team. But yeah, man, happy Monday. We finally get to talk about this Eagles dub. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to talk about the positives. I'm also excited to talk about the negatives because I think those feed into positives. But we can talk about trends as well, right? I'm excited to get into this game because we haven't talked about it too much outside of just like the superficial part of it, which is the win, which is the touchdowns from Saquon, the long touchdown from AJ, the interception from Reed Blankenship. Those are all the positives. Those are the superficials. Those are the things that look great afterwards. I want to really dig into this game and discuss it with you. So I'm looking forward to that today. But hell of a weekend, my man.
Yeah, man, and he's got a new comparison for you every day. Listen, Scotty, I will say he brings the jokes for you every time, right? However, I mean, dude, he's putting you up there in good graces. He's putting you up there.
Ice Cube's not
famous,
like
the rich, the
yeah.
On, man.
I mean, my hair must be flowing, man. I'm loving it. I'll take that one though.
That's a young Cube too.
Yeah, a young Cube. I'm looking young and spry. I appreciate that, Marshawn. Keep bringing that humor. It keeps us alive here on these Mondays, man.
Let's get into some of these positives and negatives, though. And the first positive, obviously, as always, a theme here: a win is a win, right? And sometimes it's a win is a win, as in the Detroit Lions game of 2 years ago in the opener. Or it's the Chiefs game that was a very ugly, sloppy, turnover, riddled game, and they win 21-20. It's low scoring. This was a win is a win. Things weren't perfect. There were turnovers, bad decision-making that we're obviously going to get into. The defense with missed tackles and miscommunications on the back end. We're going to get into all the negatives. Don't you guys worry. However, when you turn the ball over 3 times, almost a 4th time on the goal line, and still put up 34 points against a very good Green Bay Packer defense, that ultimately is a pretty nice positive to take forward when you can consider that they're probably going to clean things up. Cam Jurgens probably won't be snapping balls early off of Jalen Hurts' chest plate too often. They'll get the tush pushed down a little bit better and more effective as Jurgens gets there. And obviously we'll get to Jalen, but I want to start off more positive than negative today, Scotty. So that's the first thing. You turned the ball over 3 times, you scored 34 points, and you found a way to win a game. Okay, great. Saquon Barkley, let's start there, man. I mean, he was the show. He was everything as advertised and beyond. 3 touchdowns to the New York Giants. No touchdowns on Sunday afternoon. They have to be kicking themselves in the ass, man. But there's just a few things I love from Saquon, right? The first touchdown. I mean, look how they get him involved, Scotty. The first time they give him the ball, he slips on the turf, loses 5 yards. A couple plays later is a turnover. Eagles go down 6-0. It's not a great look. Or 6-0 at that point. It's not a great look for the Birds, okay? But then they go and get him involved with a great play design, a wheel route out of the backfield, get him one-on-one. He beats the backer. Good throw by Jalen. He goes up and makes a catch that a running back in an Eagles uniform, DeAndre Swift could run routes. DeAndre Swift could catch the ball. DeAndre Swift wasn't doing that for me last
year. Didn't do it for us.
So they get him involved like that early. They get him in the end zone. He scores the first touchdown of the game, first touchdown for the Eagles. But beyond that, man, they actually gave him the ball 24 times out of the backfield, Scotty. That's 24 for $109, 2 tutties, 2 receptions over 20 yards, a tutty. It was an all-around great performance. They fed him. And the last thing, man, whoever thought that burst wasn't still there, I mean, that run, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Out of the gun, he hits the center, nothing's there. He turns left, boom, finds a hole, and he's gone and almost stiff arms a safety into hell and finishes the run for like a 60-yard touchdown. He is everything as advertised. I tweeted out multiple times throughout the game. I texted you. He's a fucking monster, and he takes this offense that was already very good and talented to a completely other level, Scotty.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, anybody that watched that game and didn't think the same thing has to be a bona fide idiot. You don't win this game without Saquon Barkley, quite honestly, and I think that kind of speaks to what he's bringing to this team. We already talked about what it would look like with Goddard, AJ, Smitty out there alongside of him, and what it would open up. In this game, you saw that the Green Bay Packers refused to let Jalen Hurts run the football in them. They were not allowing him to get outside the pocket. They were not allowing him on those option plays to take it on his own. They had to give the ball to Saquon, and that's the point. Moving forward, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to give one and take one, right? Yeah. And maybe you fill the box up for Saquon. You're going to, creep to his side or where you think he's going to go.
Jalen will be there.
Then the Jalen Hurts opportunities are going to open up in the run game as well. I thought even the little compliment of Gainwell was perfect as well.
Yeah.
When he came in, he had a ton of energy.
He had that one catch that he spun and broke for a first down.
Yeah, man. He looked good. Right, Shipley got a couple snaps, but to your point, it wasn't overbearing. They weren't doing too much with those guys. And that's a great sign moving forward to see Saquon get that many touches early on. I think it shows what they're going to do with him. And it just shows that they're going to do the right thing with him, which is get him the ball. But I think, it's going to fluctuate anywhere from 18 to 24 like that. 25 touches, probably the max that he's going to get in a game, I would say, with this type of roster, barring a blowout, right, where we're just running the football every fucking play. But I do think there's going to be games where maybe it drops down to 17, 18 touches, and maybe we're going off through the air, right? AJ's having a game or Smitty's having a game. But yeah, I think what TR is saying in the comments there about the offensive line, spot on. Obviously, Saquon's not able to get into those holes, especially inside. A lot of those runs were inside rather than to the outside, where we, would generally think his speed and burst would come into effect. In order to have a burst like that out of the gun, bro, and going through the middle of your line, they have to create a pretty nice hole there, and they were able to do that quite a few times in that game, man. But just to get back to your point about Saquon, the versatility, finally seeing it. And I think, well, we're obviously going to talk about Kellen Moore and the way he used some of these guys, the motion, the formations that they were using, getting Jalen under center, the willingness to give the running back the ball from under center. All of these things included, man, I think just helped completely display all of Saquon's true talents. And this was on a shitty field, man. This was on a field where first play of the game for the offense, you see Saquon slip and fall on his face. So it's not like these were even the best conditions. So what's he going to do when he gets back and, gets to a properly maintained and
where they want to, what they're used to. No,
not playing in MetLife no more, my man.
Yeah, and to TR's point, I do like the comment about the offensive line. It wasn't really in my major takeaways, but the thing I liked about the second one is Mekhi Becton, man. I mean, we all just know and assume at this point that Lane Johnson and Landon and Jordan, they're going to be okay, right? And you saw Jordan get beat once, he slipped. You saw Lane wasn't ready for the play and didn't get out in his burst quick enough. But Mekhi Becton, you didn't really hear Mekhi Becton's name called. You didn't see anything wrong. And that's the
This is a
biggest
good thing.
positive. If we know a future Hall of Famer in Lane and a guy like Dickerson and Mailata who just, got extended and are staples to this core, if the new guy can step right in and not be a problem, not be one of the question marks we thought we might have on this offense, then that's a major win, a major positive for week one. Kellen Moore's offense, you brought it up. It's my next takeaway, man. Kellen Moore utilized motion on 65.8% of his play calls this last week. It's their highest mark in a single game since 2020. Jalen Hurts with motion on Friday night, 15 of 21, 212 yards, over 10 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns. Jalen without motion, 5 of 13, 66 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, when it was utilized, which it was utilized almost 70% of the time, it was beautiful, man. The touchdown to Saquon, like I talked about, that play design was incredible. There was a third down play, I believe, to Devontae Smith when they got him like on a wheel route and he was wide open because
it was like a natural. It's not a pick play, but it's like a layering play.
AJ slid out of the way, crossing the middle of the field, and Smitty was just wide. Like, dude, those things. You mentioned Will Shipley getting in the ball game. They utilized 2 running backs in the backfield and sent him out on a route. Like, thank you. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I can ask for. And this, again, was only week one. There's a ton more in the chamber for Kellen Moore and this offense. So I absolutely loved what I saw out of Kellen Moore's playbook so far. And the way that Jalen Hurts had success with it, Scotty. Like, think about it. The Eagles hardly used motion last year. It's right here. They used it a league lowest 35.1%. So this is somewhat, obviously I know Steichen utilized
but it's somewhat, I know we don't want to harp on like Sirianni, but like, does that not speak to like his
right? Like how do you not believe in it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just to see Jalen thrive in it, like the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Thrive in that kind of offense, like that is a positive. In a game that Jalen Hurts struggled and made some very poor choices and decisions in, we'll get to that later on. That's a positive for him, for this new somewhat new thing. For him to run it at such an elite level and this offense to run it at such a great level week one was beautiful, man. I want to tie this in real quick and I'm going to throw it to you because it's kind of like my last major positive offensively. Along with the Kellen Moore offense, A.J. Brown was awesome, like as always, right? The 67-yard touchdown on the second play out of halftime, the speed, the burst, the route running, the strength, everything. He had a couple big first downs before, caught the ball before the marker, turned, broke a tackle, picked up extra yardage, right? But Devontae Smith was incredible on Friday night. I think he only had 7 for 85 or 7 for 84, but he was awesome on Friday night. The ball just seemed to find him in critical moments, Scotty. On third downs, that 1 4th down play, that was a ballsy decision and call by Nick and Kellen to go for it there, not take the points. They get it to Smitty on a little slant route to convert. The ball seemed to find him. He was ready for the moment, broke a couple tackles, had a couple big plays. Devontae Smith was fucking awesome on Friday night.
Yeah, it's weird. And I'm, it's not to compare the two. It's almost like Smitty is just so tough, man, like compared to the rest of like everyone. Like he might be the toughest guy on the team is what I'm trying to say here. But I do agree with you. I thought he stuck out. Obviously, AJ had the big play. Just his playmaking ability always going to stick out. The way he just burned their entire team, he's so goddamn big. It doesn't make sense to even watch it play out. I didn't understand how he was running so fast past them. But it was happening. For example, look at him on that run compared to Saquon, speed burst up the middle, right? AJ, it didn't look like a speed burst. It just looked like smooth sailing. That man was flying to the end zone on that play. But you mentioned it, Smitty catching passes through the middle, being tough, catching passes on third downs, on second downs to get first downs. He was very clutch. So without all of those plays, you're not winning this game. Last Friday. The other thing that I'll throw positively, and then we're gonna switch pages here. the defense. I wanted to shout out the defense because I felt like, despite the couple missed tackles from CGJ on, what was it, Jaden Reed? That was the guy that was torching us. I believe it was CGJ, at least on the passing touchdown.
It was like a miscommunication of assignment of where he was supposed to be. And then when he recovered, he just whiffed and slipped and slid. And
which, all right, like it's week 1. We're going to make mistakes. That's fine. But I do think that the defense ultimately saved the game for us because at the beginning of it, we're obviously going to get to Jalen Hurts and some of the decisions and some of the mishaps at the beginning of the game specifically. But looking at the beginning of the game and only starting out those first 3 possessions for Green Bay, they end up 6-0 because I believe they got the ball first, right?
Did we get off the field immediately?
I believe we got off the field, no points, interception 3, fumble 3. Right, and so the defense on those 3 possessions ultimately saved the game because it could have easily been 14-0. It could have been 17-0.
And after the one in the fourth quarter of the pick in the end zone, they drive down the field a bit.
Yeah. So I did want to give the defense a little bit of credit there. Reed Blankenship it's starting to become a trend with him that he just gets turnovers. He might be a ball hawk. We have to wait and see over the course of this season. Zach Bond, man, what a surprise. Like, this guy is just a ball of energy out there.
Who knows how long it keeps up for, if he's this type of player or that was just a nice outing, right? But hey, man,
what the fuck?
Yeah, he was honestly their best defensive player, like legitimately probably their best defensive player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do, because he was flying around. 15 tackles, 2 sacks, obviously 2 QB hits, 1 tackle for a loss. Reed Blankenship was the next guy up with 8 total tackles. Quinyon Mitchell, man, the guy talks shit. He slaps the ball down. He's in your face. Like, I love this kid, man. And even Cooper DeJean was getting in on it with him on that ball in the end zone, which he knocked down from, I believe it was Christian Watson in the end zone. That might have been the first or the second drive maybe of the game. But Quinyon Mitchell, I love his confidence. I think it fits right in with the rest of those guys. And he just does it a little bit differently, right? He's not so like outlandish with like the activities, but you can see him just running his mouth like in your face. So he's probably saying the most hurtful shit you could imagine to him. I love the kid though. I love what I saw from him. Most of the young guys, I did like what I saw from most of these guys this night. But
I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, bro. Those are the 3 obviously that stand out. And Reed obviously stands out, was very active in this game, but the pick changed this game a little bit. And obviously gave the Eagles offense really good field position on that drive. But Zach Bond was everywhere, had the game-ending sack. Obviously, he was involved in the run game as well, run-stopping game as well. And then Quinyon, dude, just a very, very, very fun debut. You know, he got called for the 1 PI that was negated by a bullshit roughing the passer call anyway. But he was everywhere. And even the plays he did let up, I want to say when he was targeted, Jordan Love was like 5 for 11 or whatever. Like, they threw at Quinyon a bit.
Yeah.
But I think it was for like 56 yards. It wasn't anything crazy, 70 yards. So he had a really, really, really nice
and that's gonna happen.
And like you mentioned, man, brought some personality with it as well. And hey, from your first game, but your first drive almost as an Eagle, and you're getting going in the end zone, jawing with the Packers.
It's exactly what they talked about in camp,
it's what
man.
They needed.
First of all, to AJ Brown.
I know you were going through it. Martian's got all of the nickname for Zach Bond, man. And
the Bond collector. I love that.
Yeah.
Sack Bond.
It seems to be every fan base, bro. They come out of the woodwork, and it's literally every sport we play in. I say this to you guys all the time. Like, there have been playoff series with the Phillies, with the Sixers, you know, random games in November with the Eagles, where, like, I've never had a problem with these teams that are relevant. They're, you know, not in our conference. They're not in our division, whatever the case may be. I've never interacted with their fans. And all of a sudden, like, their players or their coach and their fan base come out of the woodwork and are just the most annoying people ever, right? So it seems to happen on multiple different fronts.
It's interesting. There was a couple Packers fans that mentioned me on Twitter because I commented on this one Packers
I
podcast
saw it.
post,
It was
bro.
awesome. It was
And
awesome.
they said, well, yeah, let's revisit this after the game. So I mean, I was waiting. I'm waiting for after the game just to hit you up. And so I hit them up, and then they come back and
about
say,
the refs, bro. They said
the refs. You can't win when you're playing against the team and the refs, or something like that. And if their offense wouldn't have came up short, they would have been up 3 scores at the beginning of the game.
Okay.
If your offense didn't come up short.
So
I would love to hear their podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about that.
To that point, and to the defense, it was just such an up and down game for the defense. It was very odd, man. Like you said, the first quarter, they get put in really bad positions, back-to-back possessions by Jalen Hurts in this offense, and they hold pat, and they only give up 6 points. In the fourth quarter, they only give up a field goal in the fourth quarter. They were stellar basically in the second half. But you had that second quarter where the backup running back for Green Bay comes in, not even Josh Jacobs. They run the ball like 5 or 6 times and cap it off with a Jaden Reed reverse handoff touchdown. Like, they couldn't stop a nosebleed on that drive. Then you had the broken play to Jaden Reed for the big touchdown. Those all came kind of in groups, and
like a spurt.
But at the end of the day, they held their own, and they bailed Jalen Hurts out, and they just did enough to win the ball game, and that's all that we can ask for. The last thing that I kind of forgot about offensively, and I'm sorry, I'll backtrack here. That final drive.
Oh,
All right, like you're up 2 points. You get the ball with like 7 to 7.5 minutes left, and I tweeted out, and I'm texting you like, can we just get that hard-nosed, let this offensive line put their hand in the ground, get upfield, and ride Saquon Barkley to victory, man? And they put together a drive with a mix of Saquon, a mix of Smitty. Jalen, even though his legs weren't a big factor in this game, the read option wasn't there, had a humongous first down pickup where he drove 2 or 3 Packers past the first down marker in Packers territory. You had the 4th down call by Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni to go for it and continue to chew clock up and ultimately end it with points. Should have been 6. Again, we had another issue on the goal line, fumble on 3rd and goal, I believe it was. With the tush push, sets them back a couple yards. Saquon recovers it, saves the day even further. And they kick a field goal. That drive was great, man. Like, that's exactly what they needed in that moment. Like even if they would have scored, Scotty, it didn't matter if it was an AJ Brown 60-yarder again. Like, I did not want the Packers getting the ball down 8 or whatever it could have been with a chance to come down against our defense in that moment. The offense took care of business, went down, got points, left under a minute left for a Packers team with no timeouts, and here we go. And that's how the game finished there. The Packers needed a touchdown and ultimately couldn't get there. Yeah, they can't be feeling too good this morning, considering that Saquon Barkley outscored their entire team by not 1, not 2, 3 touchdowns. And Daniel Jones is throwing pick sixes inside their own 15. And Scotty, what do we talk about on Surf Talk, brother? What do we talk about? How long before the clown show arrives in New York when Malik Neighbors gets tired of Daniel Jones shit? Already, it took 1 game for Malik Neighbors to visibly and look and sound frustrated with a microphone in front of him in the locker room. And that is going to be just something very, very funny to continue to keep an eye on. Now,
no doubt. But no, that drive you're talking about, the 16 plays, 67 yards, 7 minutes and 25 seconds off the clock, is a very classic Eagles finisher drive.
Yep.
Very much what we are used to seeing compared to what we saw towards the end of last year. So that was quite a positive, which you have to flip and then look at the negatives, right? Which was some of the decisions that Jalen Hurts was making. The first interception, just no reason for it. The second interception, no reason for it. The fumble, right? I'm not going to put that specifically on him, but it's something you can not have happen, right? It's on both of them. It's on Juergens and Hurts. So you have 3 turnovers that you just can't really even understand. And so I'll ask you this, man, because it's not a takeaway yet. It's more of just an observation. Do you think that this decision-making trend, do you think it was similar to last season when things started to go downhill? Because there are similarities.
Yeah.
So like how concerned are you with those decisions that were made? Is that just week 1 rust, or is it a trend? Like what is your feeling there?
Look, I'm not I'm not worried. But Friday night was such a confusing night for me when it comes to Jalen Hurts.
Very.
Because there were very, very, very poor decisions and execution of throws. Like, bro, that interception is a poor decision no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
But it's not like he threw it way over the top and a DB tracked it down and it's like a punter. He underthrew Smitty by like 6 yards and allowed a big return off of it. Dude, you threw Smitty in the middle of a diamond. There were like 6 or 5 Packer uniforms
and you're in your own end zone
around them from your own end zone. You know, the offensive line was being pushed back into him. He didn't really get his body into it, and he kind of just threw it up. So it's not just the decision, it's the execution of that throw. You're the one in the end zone. I mean, you're trying to put this team away. You're right there. He almost threw a pick 6 the play before on a bad decision where he double clutched, brought it back down, and then still tried to make the throw on the boundary. You can never, ever make that throw. He goes out, rolls out to his right. Listen, AJ was open for a brief second. He did slip. At the end of the day, you do not throw across your body back to the middle of the field, especially in the end zone.
At that point in the game.
When you have points locked in already, you do not do that at this level.
Get the 3.
He did it. And you can't do that. Hey, you mentioned the first fumble, the last fumble. I mean, he's incredibly lucky Saquon Barkley is back there and falls on the ball. That wasn't Cam Jurgens. That wasn't he just drops a clean snap right in the middle of his 2 hands. Jalen Hurts was very, very confusing because outside of those 3 or 4 plays,
he had a great
game. It's not like, he made those terrible decisions and turned the ball over and put his team in a bad position and then also like looked bad and on other throws and missed open receivers or missed a guy streaking wide open.
Tutty was a dime.
Beautiful. But the AJ Tutty was a dime, let him inside.
Right in his lap.
The Smitty throws on 4th and 3rd downs were dimes.
Some of those were tight windows. I mean,
20 of 34 for 278 and 2 passing touchdowns. If you take one of the turnovers away, one of the interceptions away, he had a very good ball game. It's just he made those 2 decisions.
I know. It was like and those are what we call bonehead decisions. I want to ask you this though, because we watched Dak Prescott, and I'm not trying to compare the 2. I'm just saying we watched Dak Prescott yesterday against the Browns. He had at least 2 picks that fell right into Denzel Ward's arms yesterday that were dropped.
Yeah.
Is that just like the risk and reward of having like a gunslinger quarterback? Like, is that what we're looking at? Or is it like, I know there's a balance. Like you can take some of those decisions away, but even some of those throws to Smitty were such tight windows where if the defender makes a play, maybe they do pick it off. Like they do have an opportunity, but it's such a tight window. It has such velocity on it that it's getting through and getting to the guy that he needs it to get to. But sometimes when you have a guy that's so confident to make those throws, it just there's no end to it in a sense. If that you know what I mean. So I do wonder. It's something I'm going to keep an eye on. Obviously, the turnovers last year.
I think it's a great point by Gint, right? Like let's keep an eye on it. If these things continue, and it's not just turnovers, right? It's not, he didn't see the safety come down and whatever. It's the overall decision. Like those were 2 very, very, very poor decisions, man. And the double clutch that was dropped was a very poor decision. There's also this.
There's stuff on his mind, maybe, maybe that is the transition.
He was making a ton more calls at the line. You could see it. He was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say verbal, but you get my point. You could see it just sitting at home when they were all the way down in Brazil, how he orchestrated at the line of scrimmage. Okay. He had some very, very big plays, some very, very good throws. He had a lot of high moments. He had 2 very bad moments, 3 very
Some
bad
tough
moments.
runs, not long runs,
Right.
not exciting runs, but tough
Correct.
physical runs.
The other thing, I was going to say one more thing, and I'm kind of forgetting, but the last thing I was going to say is his post-game interview, man. I know this sounds very corny. It's the first time I've maybe seen him show some personality.
I feel you.
And in the post-game presser at the table, like, you know how we get a little frustrated with Jalen, especially because, Jalen, you make those decisions, you turn the ball over. I don't want the corny, stoic, hit me with the poetry line about how we get better every day. He showed some personality. He smiled. He cracked a joke. He messed with set. Like, holy shit. Thank you. There's a human being inside. It's not a robot.
Shows me he's happy too. You know what I mean? You wonder, like, are you okay with everything? Like, are you happy in Philadelphia? Like, I don't. I'm like that, man. I want these guys to be happy in the city, playing for the team with the fans. Obviously, I want them to win. I want them to be happy from that standpoint. But I do want them, to show some joy out there, especially after a big W in another country. On the road. Like, it was nice to see that, man. I do agree, but. This is one positive. I will agree with what HP said here. You sit back, you watch Lamar in reverse kind of dominate the entire game from a rushing standpoint, right, against the Chiefs. Then you get to the end of the game, and he can't make those throws in the red zone. Now, I know Hurts had the fumbles, so it's maybe not the best example, but he gets you all the way down there. You get the field goal, you get the points, and you get out of there with the W. He was able to make some of those tight window throws to Smitty.
For sure.
Just thinking of it from that standpoint, that is kind of the.
I mean, that 4th and 4, 4th and 3 play. I mean, that was a tight window on the slant to Smitty where he went down and got the ball. So
it was a must.
I agree 100%, man. It was a very confusing game for me from Jalen overall.
Can I say this to you? And this is in what you just said, confusing, because you look at last season and the way I came out of this game, and maybe it's because I had the weekend to think about this now. I've had time to process my thoughts, and I came away with that game. I came away from that game on Friday night thinking we had 3 turnovers, right? We still scored 34 points. We still beat one of the better teams in the NFC and the NFL. But the other side of that is we were saying the same exact thing for 10, 11 games last year at the beginning of the season where they were winning despite certain mistakes that are being made and able to overcome them. It is very similar, Dylan. It is very similar.
Overall, yes, but not in that way. Overall, they were winning games despite the turnovers, despite situations. But like the Chiefs game I referenced earlier, bro, they won that game like 21-20. They were winning like that ugly, sloppy football. The offense had nothing for them. They had the highs. They put up 34 points against a good defense. So it's like in the macro, yes, it's the same. Like it's okay. We were saying the same things last year, but the overall outcome was different in the sense of they weren't doing what they did on offense. Because think about it. They had the 2 turnovers to start the game. And I know the one came later. But from the Juergens snap off his chest plate, from that moment on in the middle of the first quarter, up until basically midway through the 4th, they could not stop the Eagles offense.
Yeah, I do agree.
And the last drive, they didn't stop the Eagles offense.
My mind goes back to the Bills game where we come out of that game. It's an electric game, an electric win in OT. Jalen Hurts balls out towards the end of the game, and we're just sitting there and we're thinking, this was a huge W. Everything is fine. Everything is good. They did have mistakes mixed in there. We did have the previous track record as well, which is why it's not fair now, I guess. But just something that crossed my mind as I processed things over the weekend. I was just thinking, man, let's just, like, what I'm trying to say, let's just make it not a trend. Let's hope that this is not a trend. It's a 1-week thing. It's week 1. Just a little bit of rust. They didn't play in the preseason.
If it's a trend, they're not going anywhere. If every week we're looking back at multiple decisions Jalen Hurts makes and turns the ball over, every single week, they're not going anywhere in the big scheme of things. Okay.
Yeah.
But, and I think, you're on board with this, even though you thought about it for a second, the thought process right now is like, again, you turned the ball over 3 times. You fumbled at 2-yard line and only had to settle for 3 in that moment. You still scored 34 points. You still went to another country and got the win. I almost just want to say good luck to the upcoming teams on the schedule, because I don't know how you're supposed to stop this offense, especially if the quarterback is limiting those bad decisions and limiting the turnovers and protecting the football.
Yeah.
I don't know how teams are supposed to stop this offense.
I agree. And that's the other side of things. I do agree ultimately. And I think even looking around the rest of the league, week 1 kind of points to that as well. Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. There was interceptions across the league. There were quarterbacks struggling across the league. Joe Burrow, for example. There's a bunch of guys that were having some trouble.
Joe Burrow lost a home game to the New England Patriots.
Yeah. To Jacoby Brissett, who played fucking horrible as well. So make that make sense. The only thing I can get with, and I guess I would have to see everybody else's schedule as well throughout the rest of the season. The Eagles had 9 home games technically, including the Brazil game.
Yeah, so it's 8.
So they have 8 home, 8 away games regardless. But do other teams get 9 home games? You know what I mean? The ones that aren't playing out of the country.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's some that are out there. Yeah,
that would be where it is.
That's a good point. The last thing I did want to bring up about Jalen and the offense as a whole, though, and I know you can't eliminate it because it's what makes him dynamic, and it just gives Saquon a second gear as well, is the read option just did not work a single time on Friday night. And to your point, give credit to the Packers. They weren't going to allow Jalen to beat them that way. However, the read option is a quarterback decision. That's not a design. That's not, it's not a quarterback draw where he's just faking the handoff and simply keeping it from the jump. It's a decision in that moment on, reading the defense and seeing if he could pull it. He didn't read it correct one time. And not only that, he doesn't seem willing, and I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, but he's not willing to take on contact off of the read option. So he's just sliding again at the line of scrimmage. What's the point of the play? You're just throwing a play out then. And lastly, he was keeping it at the wrong times. Like there were 2 different drives where Saquon got them down the field on big runs, and on 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 6, Jalen pulls it from his gut and keeps it and gets nothing. It's like, dude,
just give it to Saquon.
Give him the ball. Like Jalen, I don't know if he felt like I need to do something. Like, stop, man. Just give 2-6 the ball in that moment.
I think it's one of those things they'll iron out. It's his first game with him. You know what I mean? Like you figure that out as time goes on, I guess. Once again, if it's something that keeps happening, if he keeps taking the ball out of Saquon's hands, then if it's a trend, then we're gonna have to have some discussions about ego and needing to be the guy, right? But I guess we'll have to see. But I do agree ultimately with what you're saying. If Saquon's got the hot hand, just keep feeding him, man. And I think with the read option, to your point, I think they're going to just have to keep adding wrinkles to that. Like maybe it's a Goddard in motion and you have the option to hand off to Saquon.
Well,
you have the option for
and then you have the RPO off of it, like Hunter's talking about where that works. But the RPO and the read option aren't the same. Like that's a different, that's a different
run pass option.
That's 2 different things. But when you allow those things to stay in your playbook, those are the kind of throws you can get from it.
And I think it's just one of those things where it's gonna work sometimes, and the right decision is gonna be made. It can turn into a touchdown sometimes. Sometimes it's gonna suck, but in this game specifically, it was not working when Jalen was keeping it, and that's the issue we're discussing. As far as TR's comment here, because this was a lot of conversation on Twitter and whatnot, was Jalen's agility, his mobility, he looks slow. That's not really even my concern. My concern is what you were talking about. It's the decision-making in a run option play. Knowing when to give it to Saquon, because it's not about Hurts outrunning anybody. It's about having clear lanes, having a hole to hit off of the option because there's attention on Saquon. So it's really about the decision-making. I don't think we're winning the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts running for 700 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground. I think we win the Super Bowl by spreading the
timely. Like that first down run he had on the final drive, timely runs by Jalen, a 3rd and 5 where he escapes and picks up 7 yards for a first down.
Because he has that ability. those frustrating runs, right? Out of nowhere where there's nothing left. There's nowhere left to go, but the quarterback can get the first down.
Because to Martian's point, man, in some of those moments in this game, they were drive stallers. They were drive killers when he decided to keep it. And next thing you know, they lose 2 yards off of a 2nd and short, and now it's a 3rd and
that's Kellen Moore too, right?
Yeah.
He's got to kind of
I will say, the one thing I did not like from Kellen Moore is there was a drive specifically. I want to say it's after one of Saquon's big runs into Packer territory where they came out of the breaker or whatever. And dude, Saquon didn't even get on the field and they threw the ball like 3 or 4 or 5 straight times and the drive ended and it stalled. And I forget if we had a punt or kick, whatever happened at the end of this drive, but like that shouldn't, Saquon Barkley touched the ball 26 times. He had 24 handoffs for over 100 yards. I am very, very happy with his usage rate. Yeah. He was on the field basically 80% of the game compared to Gainwell, who had 1 carry. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking situationally. Just make sure Saquon should have 26 touches this game because he should have touched the ball in that moment specifically. There's no reason he's pulled off the field and you throw the ball 3 straight plays and go 3 and out from that point on. That's stupid. Yeah. That's really stupid.
You're talking about the drive where is it the one where I thought he got banged up on that drive though.
No, that was before halftime.
You're talking about a different drive. Okay, yeah.
This was the second half, like crunch time almost, before our final drive. It was like the drive before that or 2 drives before that or something. Third, I forget. But
because they had an interception and then they had not a 3 and out, but like a first down and then 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So yeah, no, I do agree there. I think that's stuff that they're going to iron out, though. Like I see TR what he said about the tush push failing. It's something you got to keep in your back pocket.
I mean, you're just
like those strong. Like 4th and inches, 3rd and inches. You got to keep it in your back pocket. They'll get that ironed out. But I do think there are situations where it's a long 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 or it's a long 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2. Those instances you go to Saquon, right?
Yeah.
Inches to 1 yard, sure. Long yard to 2 to 3 yards, you go to Saquon. No more of the tush push from 2 yards out. I think we did that a couple times last season, but no, I'm not going that far. I don't trust Cam Jurgens that much, but it is something you got to have in your back pocket. We do still do it better than other teams do it. In this case, you were able to get an offsides from it in this game, which was actually huge at the time. So
yeah, man. Let me throw. Let's look at the defensive side because we did give them their flowers and their props, and they deserved it. They held tight. In critical moments, they bailed out Jalen and this offense for the turnovers. But they had their issues of their own. I mean, you did give up almost basically 30 points to a Green Bay Packers team. There were some issues defensively, and I want to get your thoughts on them. The pass rush was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
I mean,
outside of Zach Bond.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Bryce Huff made the trip to Brazil. Jalen Carter. There was a couple times Jalen Carter was being held. There's a couple times he did get in the backfield and disrupt the play. First of all, buddy, control the temper. We saw you do it last year, and then there was a video of you crying on the sideline because you were frustrated with yourself. Game 1 of this week. What are you doing? Like, I know the guy was fucking with you. He was on top of you, not getting off, maybe gave you a little shove. You can't get up in front of a referee and slap somebody in the face, basically. Let's not do that because those can be drive extenders and momentum killers. But Jalen Carter wasn't the biggest presence. Jordan Davis had a play or so in the run game. The pass rush wasn't there, man. Nakobe Dean had some big time plays, a big hit for a loss to get off the field, almost had a pick 6. Nakobe Dean showed some really good, Scotty.
Yeah.
Nakobe Dean also in coverage is a fucking disaster. It's a disaster. So something has to get figured out with him in there and not putting him in a lot of those situations and positions where he's got to cover someone over a slot receiver or a tight end over the middle of the field. So that was bad. CJ Gardner-Johnson, kind of game. But outside of that, man, I thought, one more. Avonte Maddox, when Isaiah Rodgers is back, bye-bye if I'm Vic Fangio. And I know they won't do it. He's a veteran. He might know the defense, whatever. Avonte Maddox does not need to see the field with this amount of depth at that position. Kelee Ringo should be getting on the field more. Isaiah Rodgers will get on the field. Mitchell, you can move inside and out. Cooper DeJean is only going to get better with more reps. Avonte Maddox does not need to fucking play anymore. He is a disaster, dude. An absolute disaster.
Yeah, no, I think Avonte Maddox was probably at the top of my list of who stunk. He would be at the top of my list of duds. The only problem with him is, do you move Quinyon back inside and kind of disrupt his growth outside?
Dude,
like, is it going to impact
I saw
him?
your points with Kata or Chaos Chris, excuse me now.
Chaos Chris, you can't call him that.
I just think he's such a gamer, dude, and such a dog. I don't think it matters. I think he's good.
Follow the best receiver
where he is.
Yeah. Like that was the example I used, like on Twitter. I think I was talking to someone other than Chris, but basically when you play a team like the Rams, for example, where Cooper Kupp's going to line up inside the entire game. Does he just follow Cooper Kupp to the inside and you let Isaiah Rodgers be on the outside versus DeMarcus Robinson or Tyler Johnson or Puka Nacua, whatever, I do think that's an option. The other side, Rodgers, Ringo, they just are apparently from training camp and everything that gets reported about them, they're outside corners specifically. They don't play inside. So I don't know, how hard that transition is. Cooper DeJean is the guy that I thought is the obvious guy to get implemented over the next couple weeks.
That injury set that timeline back, man. He's just going to have to get reps.
He's that guy for me.
I was happy to see him actually get on the field, though, in week 1.
Get some snaps, honestly. The thing with Nakobe Dean, and I do agree, he was horrible in pass coverage. I just think that it's one of those things, and I saw someone else say it on Twitter, and I kind of agree with it. There's only a few linebackers in the NFL that actually play good pass defense and pass coverage. There's only a few that can actually make an impact in the game that way. And most of them are on the Ravens, the Jets, and the 49ers, right? So it's really hard. So when you see Nakobe making some of those other plays, I guess we just have to hope he can just be better, because the one thing I will say from the rumors and what Bucs fans say about Devin White, he's not the answer from a pass coverage perspective. So I don't think it's going to be him. So I guess just hope that, Nakobe Dean can get better. But the pass rush is where my, aside from Avonte Maddox, I say he's the biggest dud. The pass rush is the biggest concern, I would say, because they did not show much in this game quite at all. Especially from the guys you want to see it from. Sweat, Jalen Carter, you mentioned, Bryce.
I mean, I heard all about a Milton Williams breakout year from a lot of people, and in 1 week, I didn't know if he made the trip on the plane or not.
He played 28 snaps. Moro Ajomo played 14 snaps. Booker played 8 snaps. But mostly it looks like Carter got the most snaps at DT.
Good.
And then Jordan Davis, which makes sense, right? Jordan Davis got 35, which was 52% of the snaps. They got to be better, period. They got to be better. Jalen Carter has to be better. Like, we talked about how important he is to this defensive line, this front seven. And the simple truth is, man, with Nakobe Dean in coverage, as I think about it here, if we can just get to the quarterback, it won't matter a lot of the time. We have such good back end depth, and we got such good coverage that we can maintain back there.
And I'm not expecting C.J. Gardner-Johnson to have as many mistakes communication-wise as he did. So that's a guy
he flew around well. He had good energy. It's just the little mental lapses, right? And we saw those kind of all around. I'll say this: if you can get one of two things fixed, and that be either Avonte Maddox in the slot, which is just take him off
someone
the field. Someone else. Or Nakobe Dean get better in pass coverage, be able to recognize plays a little bit better. One of those two things get fixed, we're going to look a lot better. But the pass rush is something that has to we need like a 360 U-turn with the pass rush. Like we need something to happen there.
I mean, and look,
I don't
man,
think it's something Howie will hesitate to make a move on.
Hell no. And they're all things that need to be cleaned up and need to be better moving forward. But as we're working through this, again, we start off the show hot. There were a lot of positives, a lot of fun to take away from this game. And then even when you trickle down and get to the ugly stuff, to the negatives, you're just saying, and I know Gint's commented multiple times, like, hey, man, week 1, different country. Like, it could be a trend we'll see in a few weeks, in a couple months. But for right now, let's just assume they're going to clean it up. And Scotty, they went on the road, basically, beat an NFC team that a lot of people have already surpassing the Eagles and everything that goes into that matchup. They turned the ball over 3 times, stalled a drive with what would have been a 4th turnover. The defense had these issues. They were missing basically 2 defensive starters if White was going to start, and Isaiah Rodgers, right?
Yeah. There's
Jahan Dotson didn't touch the football in week 1. Like,
there's no reason Devin White can't do what be the type of player that Zach Bond was being. Like, I'm not saying take Bond off the field.
No.
Just saying you can alternate those guys. Like, if you need another pass rusher, try Devin White out from the edge or from the linebacker position and rushing the quarterback. They need to try something there, to your point, with Devin White and Isaiah Rodgers as well.
Even when you get to all that, it's like, man, they can still be a lot better in a lot of key areas, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree, man.
That's the exciting part.
The Falcons up next, man. If the pass rush can't get after Kirk Cousins next week, we'll have to have some discussions. Yeah, that will be a big test because they got. I know the Steelers are good; they're great defense, but come on.
Yeah, and as the week goes on, Wednesday show, Friday show, hell, Monday show, because they are on Monday Night Football. We're not going to get into that matchup until probably Friday and Monday specifically. And then we had the pregame show Monday night as well. So we'll have a lot to dive into this game over the next 7 days. But just first glimpse, man. I mean, Scotty, 2 teams up on the schedule in the first 2 weeks that were just gobbled up by the media and analysts and experts out there. And it's 1 week, man. I'm not trying to make a joke of
we don't need to jump the gun
of Kirk Cousins and this team, but I mean, my goodness, that Falcons team at home. First of all, you should be embarrassed because you allowed your dome to get taken over by Pittsburgh fans.
Yeah.
Okay. No idea what was embarrassing. TJ Watt was firing up the crowd on the road. Okay, that's unbelievable. But Kirk Cousins, I mean, again, I beg the question, Scotty, who did people think he is? Does he make them better?
He was worse than what I could have imagined. Though.
Right. Do I still think they win their division? Yeah, I do. My God, $155 passing, a 29.2.
Sure, they're going to beat the Derek Carr Saints.
I mean, Jesus Christ, dude.
You sure they're going to beat out the Derek Carr Saints? Derek Carr was lighting them up yesterday. The Panthers.
And listen, and I don't want to hear anybody switch up, right? I don't want to hear anybody. If the Eagles, knock on wood, we still have a way to go, and they have to go out and play the game and win the game. But if the Eagles were to start 2-0 next Monday night, Scotty, I don't want to hear anybody switch up and start talking about the schedule and how they got this and the Falcons aren't good. Because summer, you guys told me these 2 teams that they played in the first 2 weeks were going to be in the NFC Championship game, and maybe one of them might be in the Super Bowl. And da-da-da. I don't want to hear none of it if the Eagles go out and win on Monday night.
Okay? Hell no. I'm not hearing any of that shit. Like, no. At the end of the day, there was people marking this Falcons team as like one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL, right? All the defensive additions. And I get it. They're still figuring it out. They may look like a completely different team on Monday night. But the one thing that is consistent,
and listen, and I'm not going to lie to ourselves. Like our defense, it's not the Steelers, okay?
It's not the Steelers, but we'll see, man. Like one thing I'll say, Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. He's good for a turnover or 2, and that's what we saw yesterday. Like, I don't think he's that bad. He's not as bad as he was yesterday completely, but I mean that was a little glimpse of Kirk Cousins, I would say.
On the road in prime time under the bright lights where he never performs?
We know what he does at the lane. I mean, we'll see. Like you said, we're going to talk about that game a whole lot.
Yeah.
Come next week and over the weekend and such. But excited, man. I'm excited for the season, especially with this start. To come away with this important W against the Green Bay Packers. The last thing I wanted to say about the Packers fans, because we talked about them crying earlier.
Yeah.
There was nothing dirty about that Jalen Carter play, man. Get a fucking grip.
It.
And Jordan Love was getting his leg rubbed out before that play. He was on the sideline.
The whole half.
Out.
The whole half.
That wasn't on Jalen Carter.
And here's the thing about Jalen Carter, right? He's on the ground.
He makes mistakes, but that's not one.
He gets knocked down by your offensive lineman. He looks up. You know, the game's on the line at this point. You're around midfield. He sees the quarterback standing right there. He doesn't swipe at it. He doesn't trip him. He grabs his leg to wrap him up. He's not expecting, as he's holding his knee and below, that someone is coming to clean him up and his leg's going to like fall and snap, bend a certain way. Yeah. Like there was nothing on purpose. There was stop it. He even put out on Twitter or Instagram, he posted a screenshot of his DMs right now from Packers fans. I mean, that's just a funny thing, man. Yeah, you know, week 1 of the NFL and people just keep hearing me, right? Raiders and Chargers fans scrapping in the stands outside the stadium. Bleeding.
I think I saw a Raiders fan beating up a Raiders fan.
Probably. We have death threats and all type of crazy shit in Jalen Carter's DMs from Packers fans.
The Bills fans took it to a new level. The jumping off buses in the tables now, man. I mean, give them some props. I'll give the Bills fan. I always give the Bills Mafia some props. I fuck with Bills Mafia for real.
And by the way, on top, it just that's what I was getting to, man. It just felt this weekend was such a good weekend, man. It was such a fun weekend.
It really was.
They kick it off on Friday, and just how your mood would have changed if they lose that game, especially lose that game in the final 30 seconds because of a long drive by a Packers offense or whatever and some craziness. They win the game. There were a lot of positives to take away. It was a fun game, a lot of points scored. They're 1-0. And then Scotty and I just go on to absolutely crush the bother effing weekend on.
Shout out to Dill's
if you're
5 TD parlay
over plus 4,000. If you are not tapped in on Twitter, if you are not tapped in here on the show or here on Turf Talk's YouTube channel for Turf Talk, where we give our picks out, I don't know what you're doing. We swept the night on Thursday night with Chiefs Ravens. We swept the night on Friday night with Eagles Packers. We had a winning day on Saturday in the college football world, and then yesterday, I mean, in straight, Scotty, what did we start? What did we go on straight bets? I think we went like 5-1 or 4-1 early.
Dolphins money line. Over in Bills game. We missed on the over in Chicago game.
By 2 points.
James
Conner, Tutty. Tyreek Hill, Tutty. And then we lost the Browns. And then we had Kyren Williams, Tutty in the Sunday night game. You had a good year.
Yes, sir.
So there were a lot of wins. Over plus 4,000 on an anytime touchdown score parlay. We had James Conner. We had Tyreek Hill. We had Joe Mixon. We had Jerome Ford, who scores with under 30 seconds left in garbage time to keep it alive for Kyren Williams on Sunday Night Football to get one in, and we send that one straight to the bank, man. So we post our picks every day on the Twitter account. So if you're not following, make sure to follow us at DSM_media on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Turf Talk channel, Scotty Talks NBA channel. It's the best and only spot to get your comments pulled up. I think we're going to end it here, man. We're still under an hour. I'm not going to let the last
Monday
teams talk. You know, we have all week to talk Phillies. We have a long week before this next Eagles game. It's not like
we'll have plenty of time to talk
about it all week. So we'll be talking Phillies. The Sixers posted a nice little Paul George video of him working out, and I believe it looked like in the Camden facilities in Sixers gear. So we're getting ready for Sixers season. A lot to continue to discuss. Join the ride. Baby. Join the ride. Make sure to follow. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tap in. As always, for myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your victory Monday. Go Birds.